All right, everybody, tonight I'm going to be going through some fundamental issues that we have, fundamental mistakes that we make when it comes to our healthcare and our healthcare system, or, just us as our approach to health. And we've kind of been conditioned to do this, through our healthcare system. We're very much more reactionary than we are proactive. And so one of the things is that we can have all of these advancements in technology, and don't get me wrong, I love technology. I do functional testing, and that advanced functional testing is of course very technically sound, and I use technology. But if we don't fundamentally, or if we don't address the fundamental issues when it comes to health and our approach, then we can have all the best tech and all the best science, all the best research. But if our application is still poor, meaning how we do health individually, because I mean, we have to take personal responsibility for your life and what you do to your health. We have to take personal responsibility for that. But what I have a lot of empathy for and a lot of compassion about is that a lot of people have been taught to perceive health poorly. And let's dive into this. Is that one of the ways that we've really been taught to approach health poorly is that think of it like the operating system that we use in our brains is that as long as we look good, as long as we feel good, as long as we don't have a major diagnosis, or we are managing symptoms, and a lot of times there's many different ways to do that. As long as we look good, feel good, we must be healthy. Okay. And that's a very reactionary way to approach health, meaning like, hey, as long as I look good and feel good, I must be healthy, until you're not. Okay. Because this happens all the time. It happened to me. Okay. I picked up a chair at 19 years old and my spine collapsed. And 4 months later, I'm disabled and can't walk. And I'm a college athlete at the time. I got into functional medicine because my wife got very sick. She had a rash all over her body. And that's something we have a video of that. You could go check that out on our website. But she had mold toxicity that no doctor that we went to ever mentioned. Okay. And what we started to realize is that you can go to the best of the best in their scope of practice, but if their goal is just to treat the symptoms and not get to the root cause, then you still got problems. And so ultimately, it led us to functional medicine. And functional medicine is all about investigating the root causes. And that's why, again, I love technologies to understand what's going on the inside of the body and not just base it off of whether you look bad or feel bad, right? Like if you have symptoms. I mean, lots of people come to me because they have symptoms, but there's a pattern here. And let's go over this. So I don't intend this to be that long. Okay. So let's talk about 15 minutes here. So hang tight. All right. So the fundamental issue that we have is that we're basing health off of how we look and how we feel. And so we're just going along saying, hey, I look good, I feel good. Maybe you go to the gym. Maybe you are eating right. You're not drinking, not smoking, or a lot of people do things in moderation. Although, moderation isn't really a thing. You don't really get away with it. You're either damaging your body or you're not. And the moderation thing is whether you feel bad, whether you do it or not. So again, we're going down this path of like, look good, feel good. And then so many people hit this point of now they don't. And there's plenty of research out there. There's plenty of information that what you'll look at or what you could find is that, think of degeneration of the body. Think of like cavities on a tooth. Like a cavity doesn't form in one day, right? Like there's this, I call it neglect factor of that. If you're not brushing and flossing your teeth, that it'll eventually get to a point of degeneration. And now you got the cavity, but it was a process to get there. It didn't just happen in one day or that you just missed one brushing. It was a bunch of choices that led up to that. And that's how health works a lot. That's how disease works a lot. It's the accumulation of what I call neglect factor, of not addressing true health. And so we're going down this health path and we look good, we feel good. And then all of a sudden we start to express symptoms. And what you can find in the literature is that the body's basically got to break down from, think of it like the way your body works and what health is how it's functioning. And so your body's got to go from 100% function. And you see this about 40% function loss when you finally feel, you're about 60% and you have about 40% loss of function before you feel a symptom. Okay. And so what does that mean is that you already have 40% damage before you feel the darn symptom. And so So there's this process that's happening on the inside that you don't necessarily feel until it's bad enough, like that cavity analogy. So it's bad enough. And now what happens here is we have a choice, okay? Is that what we typically do is, okay, I have this symptom. Lots of people are like, well, I'll wait a few days to see if it goes away. And then when it persists, then they go to the doctor. And the most common things that happen in the doctor's office is the treatment. Okay, so you got the treatment either with medicine or something natural. And so in that treatment, are they investigating why this happened, or is the main goal just to treat the symptom? And so a lot of times it's just to treat the symptom. And so what happens is that we don't address the root cause of the problem. There was a reason why this developed. And now we're just treating the symptoms and saying, okay, you feel better now that we're doing this treatment. And then it kind of just stays there. People keep taking stuff. And the root cause is never addressed. So think of this a little bit like maybe like a fire going on in your house, right? They got these fire alarms that start going off, and because there's a fire in the house. And so instead of putting out the fire, you just take the batteries out of the fire alarm. Does that put out the fire? No. And so if you don't put out the fire, what happens to the building? It keeps burning down, right? So the fire moves from one room to the next to the next. And so in healthcare, what this looks like is that people start to they may be taking something to treat the one symptom, but now they start to have another symptom. So then they get put on something else. And then they have another symptom. Then they get put on something else. And now they start this vicious cycle of basically degeneration, ultimately because the root cause of the problem is just not being addressed. And as individual people, as lay people, as the way that we've been culturally thought to perceive health, we just keep going down this path, and we don't know that there's anything that we need to do different. And we just, there's so many people who are not doing well. They're very sick. We've got lots of diagnoses. I mean, we've got more diagnoses than we ever had in the history of America, especially. And one of the sad things is that we keep trying to approach it the same way. And that's what I'm trying to express here tonight, is that we have symptoms and then we treat the symptoms. We don't address those root causes. And so the problem just keeps getting worse. It keeps spreading. Okay. And so people go through all of these treatments and treating with medicine. And then the medicine has side effects. And it's a vicious cycle. And most people who come and see me have been through all of that. And they are so frustrated. And some of them have lost so much hope because they just haven't heard anything different. And they start to believe that maybe it's their age and their genes that are like the primary factors of why this is happening. And yet the root causes have never been addressed. And so what I love about that is I never want anybody to be sick, but because the root causes have really never been addressed, that brings back a lot of opportunity. It brings back a lot of hope that once we start addressing those things, then we can get your body to move back towards normal. And this brings me to another very good point, is that what we've been taught in our society, in our culture, is that symptoms are your body doing the wrong thing. What if symptoms were your body doing the right thing? So think about this, is that I love this analogy, and you can learn so much from it, is that if let's just say you were stuck on an iceberg, okay, like it's super cold, you don't have the right equipment on, and your body starts to shiver to do what? Warm back up. But you're on an iceberg, like you're in Antarctica, okay? And a little bit of shivering is not gonna warm you up, right? So what your body starts to do, there's a mechanism here of survival, of protection, that your body starts to take all the blood and nutrients to your vital organs. Now, why does your body do that again? Is to protect you, to keep you alive. But here's the issue, is that when it does that, it leaves the fingers and toes vulnerable, right? Because the fingers just aren't as important as your heart or your brain or your lungs, right? Or your liver or something, these vital organs. And so it's taking all this blood and nutrients to the vital organs to preserve you and keep you alive, but the fingers and toes freeze and die. Here's the thing, is that your body doing the wrong thing? It's just trying to protect you. It's trying to keep you alive as long as possible. Okay? What I want you to start to think about, like just crack the door of perspective here and say, is it possible that every other disease, diagnosis, symptom, problem I've ever heard of is that same exact mechanism of protection and survival. Because it is, okay? It is. Why would your body discriminate between you being stuck on an iceberg or, heart disease, cancer, diabetes? The body's trying to adapt to something, and with enough adaptation, it can start to express symptoms. And like the fingers freezing, those symptoms can be pretty severe, but it's not the body doing the wrong thing. And so if we start to recognize that the body's doing these things on purpose, and if we just treat those symptoms, we're actually going against the body's natural mechanisms. So think about the iceberg analogy again, is that if you're on this iceberg and there was a drug that you could take that would redistribute the blood from your brain and your heart and your vital organs back out to your fingers so you could potentially save your fingers, do you live as long? No, because you just manipulated the body to go against its protective survival mechanisms to save something less important. And so you wouldn't technically live as long. And that's what happens with a lot of the medications is that, we get put on these things and it's like, we call it good. Like we found the problem. We found that you have diabetes. We found that you had heart disease. We found that you had cancer. And so we do the treatments and see everything seems to be within normal limits, but the root cause wasn't addressed. And we've also manipulated the body. This is why there's so many side effects with medications, guys, is that it's manipulating the body against its protective mechanisms. And you can only do that for so long until it creates problems. And if you don't ever get off the iceberg or know how you're on an iceberg and then therefore how to get off, then you're still stuck in the same darn in situation, in the same environment that's creating the problem. And because your body's just trying to adapt to life, it's trying to adapt to three things, guys. It's physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. What's great about that is that every disease, diagnosis, symptom, problem you've ever heard of all filters down into those three stressors. Now, there's many subsets to those three stressors, but what's great is that when you understand that fundamentally, see, we're talking about the fundamentals again tonight, is that when you understand that fundamentally, there's always a trigger. There's always an iceberg. Another great analogy that I see all the time is if I hit my head on my desk here and split my head open, that's not the cause of the problem, right? And it doesn't matter what you name that. A diagnosis is informational. It's not causational. A symptom is informational, not causational, right? Diabetes is not the cause of the problem. Heart disease is not the cause of the problem. Cancer is not the cause of the problem. Hormonal imbalance is not the cause of the problem. Diverticulitis is not the cause of the problem. You could just keep rattling off all of these diagnoses. These are all names to symptoms or a group of symptoms that we do need a classification process to help keep things organized in our healthcare system. But a fundamental flaw again, is that if we say that cancer or that heart disease or that diabetes is the cause of the problem, fundamentally, you can have the best technology, you can have the best research and science, but if fundamentally you're blaming that as the cause of the problem, you're fundamentally off and you will not reach your health. You will not regain your health the way that you want to. Okay, so what have we covered so far is that most people are basing their health off of how they look and how they feel. And then once they look bad and feel bad, they go get treatments. And that's okay in some ways, because sometimes it's like, hey, this is an emergency. Take the drugs, do the surgery so you stay alive. I love that. But if that's where it stops, if they're blaming it on the diagnoses and the symptoms, that's the cause of your problem, then fundamentally you're going to end up with more problems. And so we've got to stop basing health off of how we look and how we feel. We need a better analysis, and truly that's what functional medicine should be about. That's how I do it. And then we've got to understand that these treatments are helping, are treating the body to manipulate it, and it could be short term. And if you're stuck on an iceberg and you're manipulating the blood flow back out to your fingers, you actually die sooner. So if some of you are popping on here later on, make sure you come back to the beginning of this so you can listen to this whole process, the step-by-step that I've been going through, is that we don't want to do treatments. If we have to, we need to do them short term, but long term, we shouldn't be just continuing to take stuff. We've got to investigate root causes. or the problem is just going to keep getting worse and worse. And again, that's why you see people go from one symptom to another symptom to another symptom to another diagnosis to another diagnosis to another diagnosis to another drug to another drug to another drug, and never getting to the root cause of the problem just is allowing the problem to keep getting bigger and bigger. Okay. And so we've got to break these fundamental issues. Don't base your health off of how you look and how you feel. Get specific advanced functional medicine testing. That I don't have enough time to go through all of that tonight, but that will help you to get to the root causes. That you've got to understand the difference between treatment and working towards resolution. Like, what's the causes? You've got to understand that your body's always working for you, not against you. That symptoms and diagnoses are not the cause of the problem. They're just names to symptoms. That's information. Like, it's important. You can use that. But fundamentally, if you're blaming the issues, the diagnoses and symptoms as the cause of the problem, you're way off. And that's where it gets a little bit confusing for a lot of people and even doctors, okay, in their scope of practice. And so we've got to look at those things different. And so how do we change this, right? So what do we need to do that's different is those three things. Number one, don't base health off how you look and how you feel. Understand that symptoms and diagnoses are not the root cause of the problems, that you can treat things and feel better, but did it address the cause? And if there's still a question there, you probably didn't. And then we've got to understand that the body's working for us and not against us. And so if we're fundamentally doing that, then we're going to be approaching health the right way, the proper way. But then you got to be individually functionally tested to understand the root causes. And so let me give you a little piece of this, is that it's so complex. There's a lot of different aspects to this. And so functional medicine is based off of systems, not symptoms. Okay, symptoms, again, are information. Diagnoses are information. Functional medicine is based off of systems. And you've got several systems within your body that can be analyzed to look and see how are they working. You kind of think about maybe like taking your car to the mechanic, for a checkup, right? Or like an oil change, and they do like a diagnostic test on there. And so they're looking at how is the engine functioning. They're not looking to see, is the engine seized? And that's like kind of what medical testing is looking for, is like, what's the diagnosis? Has the engine seized? And so what do we need to do to replace the parts, right? We need a new engine. And so functional medicine and these systems of the body, I'm not analyzing these to understand, how did somebody get to a seized engine, basically? How did they get to a seized engine? How is the body degenerated because of this? And then what are the fundamental things that we have to address for each individual through lifestyle, for sure, right? Everybody knows that nutrition is important, and that's definitely part of it. Everybody knows that moving is important. Moving, meaning exercise, is important. And it is, right? You got to be moving. And we got to eliminate toxicities out of our life. And this is a whole topic in itself, that there's plenty of toxins that you probably are picturing, whether it's drinking, smoking, soda, I don't know, fast food, ice cream, I don't know. There's all these things that might come into your head that, yeah, they're probably toxic, but there's so many different layers to toxicity, and that we live in a very toxic environment these days. And it's not even just about what toxins we're being exposed to. It's also about how your body's ability to get things out. And so that has a lot to do with your immune system and your gut, actually, because your liver's inside there. But go back to some of my other videos and you'll be able to find some more information about those, whether it's here on YouTube or go to Instagram, Facebook, and then I even do some things on TikTok, just to try to get and help more people out there, okay? So make a bigger impact. But go look at some of these other videos if you have time. To get some more of that information. But, fundamentally, again, guys, if you're listening to this whole thing, I know I'm repeating myself, but I mean, we have more heart disease, cancer, diabetes. I've named those off because those are just some of the most common diagnoses that we have out there. But we have so many diagnoses out there. So many people are sick, and everybody thinks that it's normal to be sick. It's just common. It's not normal. But we keep making these same fundamental mistakes that keep leading us to the same problems. And so, that's actually the definition of insanity that Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But we keep ending up in the same places of sickness and disease. And so part of that is what I'm talking about here tonight. Fundamentally, can't base yourself off how you look and how you feel. You can't even base it off if you go to the gym all the time or eat right all the time, because I was definitely a statistic to that. And so was my wife. We have to understand, again, that the body is working for us and not against us. And we can take things for a little bit, but we have to like medicines and even natural things. But if you don't find the root causes, then you're not addressing the problem. And so the problem just keeps getting bigger and bigger, worse and worse, because it's just going to naturally keep progressing if you don't address it. And I use that iceberg analogy. I always remember that analogy. It's a very cool analogy that can help without knowing all the details, all the anatomy, all the physiology, all the biochemistry. It's something that you can use as an anchor to come back and say, you know what? Yeah, the body does work it is working for me, not against me. And I got to understand, why is my body changing the way that it is? What's triggering the issues? And then because it's been triggered, what's happened on the inside? And Dr. Gunyon said that that's what functional medicine testing is for. And it is, guys. That's what I do every single day. It's what saved my wife's life. Again, check out her video, the video we did with her on our website. It's actually on the YouTube channel as well. And so, check those things out. Get some more information. Send me messages, and I just want to be helpful and help people lead them to the truth, and ultimately become their own doctors, because ultimately, who's responsible for your health? You are. So who has to be the doctor? You do. But what does that really mean? Well, a big part of it is what I'm teaching you tonight, is to think differently, to approach it differently. But then you need some guidance from somebody like me, who's been through the trenches of it all, and didn't just, like, I love this because I didn't just read it in a book. Like, I had to go through this. It took my wife 3 years to recover and get well. And because of those ups and downs, and because of that struggle, I often say, you hear that saying is that, sometimes your biggest tests become your biggest testimonies. That's definitely me and my wife, and why we do what we do. It wasn't that I just wanted to become a functional medicine doctor. Yeah, I had to go through this process myself and come out the other side saying, oh my gosh, look at how many people are struggling. And because we went through this struggle and we came out on the other side, wow, I could probably really help a lot of people to get well like we did. And that's really cool. And so that's what inspired me to become the functional medicine doctor that I am today, and being able to serve thousands of people, which is very humbling. I say that humbly, okay? But yeah, come back and review this video. Send me some messages if you have some questions. Check out some of the other videos and things that I have. Go to the website, check things out. And if you are struggling with your health and you are searching and needing some help, please reach out to me, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure that you're where you need to be and on the right path to regain your health. So everybody have a great night, and I'll talk to you soon.